My last course in philosophy in college was taught by an old, strong, deep-voiced priest with pure white hair, always in disarray, and lots of it. He would come in the classroom many days and begin the class bellowing out one question: who is your neighbor? He did it a lot deeper voice than that. Who is your neighbor? All of us have grown up in neighborhoods of one sort or another. Some of the folks in my neighborhood growing up, we got to know pretty well. Some became friends, even for life. I just recently talked to Greg, one of my first friends on the street we grew up on, who lives in New York City now. 60 years that friendship has extended. And there were some in our neighborhood we never really got to know, and so they remained strangers. And some of them I never wanted to get to know. They were what we called in those days the crab apples. They were always yelling at us kids for walking on their lawn, either a shortcut or to get the ball that rolled onto their grass. And for them, we were always too loud, of course. Neighborhoods always seem to have one crabapple. Some neighbors have big walls, big fences that seemed impenetrable. Some were very private. Some would turn to each other for help along the way. But we also had good people in that neighborhood. Happy people, actually. Generous people, warm and welcoming people in our hood. I can honestly say my favorite neighborhoods are front porch communities, where people hang out on their front porches all the time, it seems. Even when I walk through the fraternity houses on the far side of campus, it's so cool to see some of the guys hanging out on their front porch, saying hi as we go past. Some people hang out on those front porches with these big rocking chairs there that welcome their neighbors to stop in as they're out walking their dog or their kids or each other. Neighborhoods change over a lifetime. My neighborhood began in a North County neighborhood about 25 minutes from here, that away, and became South City for me, and became a dairy farm community after that out west, and became all things different all along the way. And now that neighborhood, for me, for us, is Washington University. They, you, are our neighbors. This gospel you just heard proclaimed is about neighborhoods of our lives. The healing of this broken world begins in neighborhoods, with neighbors, learning how to be neighbors. These readings are all about neighborhoods, actually. They do ask the question, who are your neighbors? Mother Teresa said one time that the saddest thing is that we don't even know the names sometimes of our neighbors. Where do we, you and I, where do we let ourselves feel like we belong to something, to someone? Where do we learn to take responsibility for each other? The responsibility we humans have for each other if we dare to take it up. It's where we realize we can help each other through anything, even the worst, as Sigma Nu now knows. Even the worst, people can help us through. The first reading from the Jewish prophet Ezekiel, we would say that we are at our best when we're watching out for each other. Listen again to our Jewish teacher and rabbi, Jesus, in this gospel, who says clearly, we have a stake in each other's lives. We have a stake in each other's lives. Maybe it's as neighbors we are watching out for each other as well and take some responsibility for how the other is doing. The guy down the hall, in the building across the hall, right here, right now. We could take responsibility for how each other is doing in some ways, challenging them if necessary, comforting them for sure. And St. Paul in that second reading just puts it so simply. We got to learn how to love our neighbors. Love our neighbors. If there's anything that creates neighborhoods, it's to discover that one of our neighbors is suffering. Oh, there are those who will pretend to not know that we're suffering. They'll pretend to keep their distance because they don't know how to respond to other people's suffering. But when tragedies happen, like what happened to Zach, strangers become friends of our neighbors. When we're up against the wall and we don't know what to do, and we don't know how to deal with whatever's going on, whatever the loss, everybody becomes a neighbor to everybody else. Suffering creates neighborhoods. The suffering of one humanizes all of us and makes neighbors even of strangers, maybe even of enemies. A loss like what you in your little neighborhood of Sigma Nu have gone through and suffered affects all of us. It affects all of your neighbors. The morning of the service for Zach up in Chicago left me here in St. Louis so sad that morning when I woke up, and anxious for all of you, whether I know you or not, personally. And it left me full of compassion that morning for his neighbors. What happens to you happens to us in the neighborhood. We are here with you, and we are here for you. We want to support you. None of us can say we ever understand, but also none of us can escape what you have lost. Who is your neighbor, Sigma Nu? The answer, at least one of the answer is, we are. And to all the rest of us gathered around them today, the question stands, who is your neighbor? Who are you neighbor to? To all Zach's friends, your loss is our loss. Your tears are our tears. Our house is not far from yours, and it's your house too. We are with you. We are indeed your neighbors. If you need a place to cry someday or night, alone or with a friend, 24/7, you are welcome here. Chances are you won't find yourself alone. We have no agenda for you. You will feel safe to be as who you are at any given moment along the way. With whatever questions you bear, angers, and all. No one cries the same way, but we all cry. I think Mr. Rogers said it best, even sang it actually. Welcome to the neighborhood, he said. won't you be my neighbor too?